Okay, we're back. Part 5. Let's go.
Was junk. And that was very much and sort of the nature of the beast is everybody sort of figured stuff out, but there were observably a lot of articles in the old wiki, and in the beginning days of Wikidot that were junk. I'll say that they were junk. And nature of the beast, there it is.
Right.
And then
There were
crawl
times
before
in the
you
past
walk.
where a lot of articles were cold as part of pushing for a more
a more
database,
cohesive
but...
sort of thing. It's there was a piece of flavor text on a magic card that I've held near and dear since I read it. God help me. It said, books must be thinned for best yield. And I think that's really true. You kind of have to...
I highly agree. That kind of gets to what we were saying earlier about shorter SCPs.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is it that the SCP cannot agree with Dr. Gears here? I mean, it's not just that Dr. Gears came from a earlier and simpler time. This is somebody who the SCP culture reveres highly, and they just, whenever he says something that's profound, they just forget. They have selective memory. They just forget that he's like a big influence on these people.
And I remember in the early days, a couple of things. One of it was, I remember Kane Pathos Crow publishing Able. I remember when that came out. I remember reading that and going, I hate this.
Terrible.
He's gonna hear about this.
Awful article.
No, it's true. I read it. It's like, oh my god! I thought his username was pretentious. I thought his entry was stupid.
Yep.
I thought it was an edgelord, and I dismissed it. And now, it's part of Foundation history and culture and such. And
I hate it.
It's definitely grown on me.
Yeah.
And I love King to death.
Sure.
So that is the way of the beast. But I remember at the time, I remember bringing that up to at one point. He was just confused. He's pretentious. I'm I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. I just didn't understand. I didn't get it. That was one of the funny things. I remember talking with Kane for a little bit, and I'm still telling him, I said, if we ever have cause to meet initially, and you don't open up with a Labrador Retriever with a walkie-talkie on his collar so you can talk through it, I'm going to be disappointed. Because his author avatar was a dog with glasses, so that's been the running gag forever.
One of the most famous author avatars for sure.
Absolutely. And I remember...
only in the early days could you get away with basically appropriating, a biblical character and making it into an SCP. The extent to which Cain and Abel really both are celebrated via media in the SCP culture is it's not a good sign.
Talking to him, and I was like,
not something to be proud of.
Writing SCP entries on the train to and from work. I'm like, dude. He's like, well, it's the only place I get good internet.
Hell yeah, man.
And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's dedication right there.
Riding a train or a bus, sandwiches among other people, just hammering away at stuff. I think the War of the Doctors stories were going on at the time. So he's just hammering away at this intense, fiction and such, just sandwiched between other commuters. I'm just like, that is absolutely insane.
Writing an SCP article on a phone sounds like hell.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Everybody does it. People do it. I know people who've done it.
Absolutely.
Gregory
Carpin does it.
He was on a phone. He was on a laptop.
But Harry Blank doesn't. Why? Because he types too fast. How fast does he type? You say? I'm glad you asked. 115 Guam on a slow day.
This is he was on a laptop, a full size effing laptop. Sitting between.
Are we on 1.25? We're not.
Oh my god.
All this stuff. So it was just that's insane to me. But I remember one of the other big things that ended up being a thing was the groups of interest. Because I remember between one day and the next, someone had put together a group of interest, and it was the Chaos Insurgency. And they were basically just the anti-Foundation. They were...
Real quick.
Yeah.
Don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I want to make sure of something real quick.
Yeah.
Was this before or after we moved over to Wikidot?
This was before.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're following.
No, and we're still in that progression. But this was before we moved over to Wikidot. There was the Chaos Insurgency, which was the anti-Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of looked at that and meh.
Wasn't that created by Dr. Clef and Elania?
It was interesting, but it was since then, amusingly, and something I've tried to push forward that I don't think anybody...
No, I think that's the Global Occult Coalition. I get those two confused so often.
Anybody else
I
has.
can never straighten it out, the memory.
And I think should be, maybe embraced a little bit more, is that the Chaos Insurgency doesn't exactly exist, or doesn't technically exist.
I love that theory.
The theory is this, that whenever a SCP facility, asset, site, whatever, goes rogue, they just stamp that out, always Chaos Insurgency, and off they go. and it becomes a very quick moniker. And also, like,
the political parallels to the in real life SCP Foundation, they're too juicy to pass up here.
have to pull some shit. It's like, this site or this asset really needs to go away, but we don't have any technical reason or ability to get him out of there. Just, oh, he got by this Chaos Insurgency. Oh, well. And so it becomes
Chaos Insurgency bad.
The dust dim of Foundation buggery. And
my God, he's speaking in riddles. He's not meaning to, but he is, if anybody's paying attention.
And general screw-ups and shadow ops and stuff like that. Does it actually exist? Yes, probably to an extent. There's probably people that survive that crap and be like, fuck it, I'm going to get called it anyway. I'm going to put that patch on and keep rolling. But it's more of a title than anything structured, and like that's kept very quiet in the Foundation. It's like, you have guys in the know and be like, oh man, I'm wondering if the Chaos Insurgency are coming. Guys like sort of in the know is like, are you 5? What the hell's wrong with you? What are you talking about? It's like, I don't mind.
Once again, Izumi Kato is going to come sue us for the SCP-173 image. Oh, hey, we got to, gather your IP address without your consent and get your email without your consent or understanding or awareness. Because Boogeyman bad. Because Boogeyman's are right there. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah. This effortlessly is doubling as the sort of commentary that I am into. Amazingly. It's so juicy.
Just kind of like move it. And I put that in occasionally. I don't think anyone's picked up on it. But anyway.
It's like the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
You still believe in the Chaos Insurgency?
It's like, what? How?
Yeah, you still believe in you still believe in that Boogeyman? I mean, the thing is with the SCP Wiki, they said sorry for that. Town Halls 2021 explicitly. Was it an epic? I want to say. Maybe it was another staffer in the Town Hall thread said, look, we know that we have propped up boogeymen that are figments of our imagination, and we've used them to fearmonger the community into policy directions, and we apologize for that. We won't be doing that in the future. And guess what they did?
Like, how have you made it this far? You've been here for a couple of years. What the hell? It's that sort of
Santa Claus too?
Yeah, it's like, what the hell? You want to hide from the Easter Bunny or something? What the hell's going on, brother?
You believe in the Kiwi Farms boogeyman?
But
still,
that kind of idea. But I sat down and I thought, it's like, well, there was a TV show. There was a TV series, and God, I cannot remember the name of it at all. There was a hotel room in some bumblefuck nowhere place, and all the items in the hotel room had gotten strange powers. Did this help inspire the Foundation? Oh, maybe. The idea is not exactly unique, but
we did an article on Confic Magazine. I'll include in the description here. It was actually a really good article done by myself, if I do say so, and Dr. Pearson, Blake. It was called What Makes a Confic Organization a Confic Organization? And it goes through a lot of the popular culture potential examples of pseudo-containment fiction, X-Files, Warehouse 13, Fringe Division, Twin Peaks, Control. Another one of our magazine articles is all about Lobotomy Corp. I wonder if one of those is one I mentioned that Dr. Gears is talking about here.
But it was floating around, and one of the people there had sort of a religious awakening with one of these items or whatever. I think it was like something very mundane. And I had this idea. It's like, well, religion is a sticky wicket. It's really an odd thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you what, if you pray to something and it does something, it makes it really easy to believe.
Sure.
If you pray to something and ask it to strike down your enemies, and it does, by whatever means, it's like, well, there you have that. That certainly did happen, didn't it?
And that's how you get, like the Aztecian and or whatever Mayan civilizations convincing their population that if they don't sacrifice, tremendous amounts of their harvest and their crop and their wealth and even their children, that the serpent in the sky is going to eat the sun. And they were able to predict those things very accurately because they knew a little bit about cosmology and astronomy and whatnot, and knew when solar eclipses were going to happen. So that's a double-edged sword. They can certainly use that against you.
And the Church of the Broken God kind of spawned from that idea. Initially, they had nothing to do with Clockworks at all. At all, at all. And I'm going to be breaking hearts. I know that right now.
I don't care.
But no, initially, they just worshiped these odd items as offshoots of some broken deity that
Cool.
they were hoping to, or bound to, or whatever, to bring back together. And their leader...
So it's a lot like the Holders. I want you to notice the similarities between the Church of the Broken God and the Holders. And that was probably subconscious, but you cannot deny the thread of ancestry between the Holders, Dr. Gears, his exposure to that, and what you see in the Church of the Broken God. It's really just a rendition of the Holders in a religious cloak and a mechanical cloak now.
Mr. Bomero, was basically sort of a blind pig finds a truffle. He was a con man who kind of pulled various...
Blind pig trying to find a truffle. Truffles are... I must not understand that phrase very well because pigs smell truffles. They're subterranean. I don't get it.
stuff.
I'm an idiot
and sort of
sometimes.
Religious con and ended up drinking his own Kool-Aid. Like sort of fooling around playing, I'm going to set up a cult, basically build people up for money, and accidentally hit on something. And ended up kind of getting the bug for it. So, and that was the way it was. And then after we had moved to Wikidot, and I put out some more stuff, some people made some connections between some of my items, including the Clockwork Virus, and some other stuff, and sort of put it together. And all that got snarled up with the Broken God. And it became this clockwork-based, sort of apocalypse cult sort of thing full of, crazy stuff. I'm like, that's awesome. Let's do that. That's
Very interesting.
So that was, my initial vision was very basic. And then people kind of took it and run with it. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And now you have like...
Man, that's so cool. It's like a dialectic between the persona of the creator and something that they just created that they didn't even mean for that persona to sort of spill over and have the creation take qualities from. That's pretty cool.
Like multiple sects and different aspects and all this kind of stuff. And
SECTS, guys, calm down.
I could not be more pleased. It's so cool kind of seeing how it sort of bloomed up. Incidentally, something I've been kind of working on and such is the Church of the Broken God, as of late, has had a tough time. You have
has it?
Major sects. There's a lot of breaking up. There's a lot of
SECTS, not major sects. Let me rephrase that. Make that very clear for this audience. Not my audience, but the SCP audience.
Just like that. But that is the thing with big military, violent, expansionistic religions. Every so often they go through one of them Reformation things, and shit gets weird. And I've been actually fooling around with a couple ideas for some stories and stuff kind of based on that concept of sort of the core of the Broken God Church kind of reaching out to some of what they feel are the disparate belligerent sects and bringing everyone, willing or unwilling back into the fold.
Yeah, so that kind of, I hate to be so meta. That's Dr. Gears, he doesn't know it, but he's just so naturally in tune with everything that's happened with the SCP Wiki and whatnot. And, Dr. Gears is the kind of person who, you will never know it, but he said everything that he would ever want to say naked, but instead decorated into his fiction. His fiction has said it all. That's really a great writer. A great writer, wouldn't have anything on their Twitter feed. They wouldn't have any thoughts on their Twitter feed. It would all be in their work. And so you would think, as that tea, that they didn't have political beliefs or whatever, but in their work, it's all there, right? God, authors need to get rid of Twitter. Twitter just needs to die. Come on. But anyway, my point being is that Dr. Gears is to a T explaining, even down to the pegging of a pseudo-religious or explicitly religious militaristic and imperialistic force attempting to re-assimilate the pieces of itself that it has lost control of due to its zealotry. That's exactly what has happened with the SCP Wiki. Oh my God. And these other branches of containment fiction that we're seeing bloom. I mean, my God.
So,
love it.
Something interesting.
He doesn't know it. I'm not going to go that far. I don't think he's actually cognizantly saying this, but it's just, you could just copy what he said and paste it into the meta discussion and not have to change a single thing.
But one of the other big ones I did with that back on the old site was Marshall Carter and Dark Limited, which was basically, you're going to have stuff like this. You're going to have people who want to buy them and people who want experience. If you have billions.
So Limited, Marshall Carter and Dark is an LLC. Just a little fact, fun fact.
Upon billions of some ridiculous amount of money. Buying the unattainable is one thing. Experience is another thing. And it's like, what if you could have a cannibal's banquet and nobody had to die and you'd never get arrested? That's something. That can appeal to the right kind of psychopath.
Yeah.
And various other aspects as well. And sort of they grew out from this idea of this very clandestine, very discreet, very powerful organization using the items for generally profit. Now, what kind of profit? Is that just coin? Probably not. That is involved.
Interesting.
It's like, listen, I can set things up so that you can indulge that thing that you were accused of and bought your way out of without going back to jail. But in return, you join the club, and if one of the other members maybe has an issue, or we have an issue, or we call upon you for something, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Jesus. He just described not only a mafia's setup, but the setup of the entire, political elite. Man, yeah, I never really thought of Marshall Carter and Dark as that, but that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm sure the people have thought about that too and written about it, but man, he's so succinct with the way he talks. I mean, they're just sound bites, quotable lines, just fall out of this guy effortlessly. Amazing.
Sort of thing. So it's very discreet with ass loads of money. And, the club, Marshall Carter and Dark Limited, generally are a very difficult opponent because there's not much to them. You have this very hard core of what they are, the internal structure. But if they have to go out and do something, they have to go raid a site or knock somebody off or something like that, that's moments of convenience. That's going to a PMC or, anything. You need someone shot. Yeah, you can hire an elite assassin, or you can find some wino in an alley and give him $50 and a shotgun. And the guy will get dead either way. And they're the type to do that. It's like, how do we deal with the situation?
Either way. This guy.
If you haven't been given exact directives, be like,
what a way
pay
with
the big
words.
bucks to make sure it works. It's like, we need to make this happen.
I love that.
How do we make it happen? Because they are still a for-profit organization. And there's no reason to spend money if you don't have to, and it's not going to impress anybody.
There you go.
So I think of the organizations, I think the church gets along with the foundation the absolute least, just because they have very, very different ideas of doing things. I have always felt that MC&D and the foundation have had a distressingly close relationship, where they both kind of need each other to survive.
Close relationship.
The club needs the foundation to find some of the shit and build the process. So they'd be like, "Ooh, yeah, we need to make sure we have shit in order if we're going to take this." So they handle a lot of legwork. Meanwhile, there's a lot of revenues. It takes a lot to be a giant monolithic organization. Some of that's money, and probably not the items themselves, but offshoots, data, personnel, things that may not be 100% necessary. Maybe further off to the club now and then, and everyone just kind of pretends like it's not happening. But it's
Jesus, man. My God, I'm so defeated because he doesn't even know it, and he's done a better job. He's said it better than what I've tried to say it, without even trying. Let's go back for just a minute. I want you to process this line he just said in parallel. That as if he's speaking in riddles and on two layers here.
And everyone just kind of represent necessary. Offshoots, data, personnel, things that may not be 100% necessary. Maybe further off to the club now and then. And everyone just kind of pretends like it's not happening. But it's... Right. And that was kind of the beginning. That was...
amazing.
I remember there was the Chaos Insurgency, and there was those two. And those are the three groups of interest that we had. God, for a real while. I think I wrote less than half a paragraph on each of them. And
that surprises me that they were just after you for so long.
Yeah, no, that was the way on the old wiki. I believe that was it. I think just before we left, I think maybe there was one or two more. And then when we came over to Wikidot, they started coming around. But no, the Serpent's Hand and stuff was not a thing at all. Wow. And I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not.
I'm not going to send him a message correcting him on that.
But no,
I don't know. And it'd be a lot to look up. Although we do at the Config Wiki need to start writing about GOIs.
Actually, it wasn't. We had our hands full just kind of defining what the foundation was to a certain extent. So sort of outside groups were just sort of, candy on the side. But no, that was that piece of it. So
interesting. Yeah. So what got you guys to finally move over to Wikidot? What happened there?
I will level with you. I don't remember much. I remember there was a lot of discussion about how things were going and stuff, and people were going back and forth. And it was, we had some new people in. God, I want to say Clef and Bright joined on the old site, or it was right when we migrated over. It was somewhere around that time. But yeah, they were the new kids on the block at the time. At one time, if that tells you anything.
Crazy.
But no, we were, we had blossomed from 20, 30 guys to probably damn near 50, 60 at least. We were growing out of that place quick. And the site was there. It didn't have a lot of communications. It didn't have a lot of ability or a lot of flexibility. It just wasn't working. It flat wasn't working for what we were trying to do. So we're like, hey, we're going to migrate everything over. And I'm like, hey, okay. So I grabbed up all my stuff and carpet banked it over to the new site and plunked it all down and was like, okay. And that was kind of how we did stuff. And left out of it. But I don't remember really having, I know there was some discussion in the background. I remember people talking about stuff, but I really wasn't heavily involved in it. I wasn't heavily involved in the maintenance of the site and the actual function of it.
Yeah, that was the administrator.
Just a guy writing it. I remember people saying, hey, we're going to leave out of here. I'm like, why the hell are we doing that? It's like, because this place is shit. It's like, okay. Guess we're going. So we packed up and hauled ass over. And man, when we made the switch, it was great. It was great. We had forums and links that worked and all kinds of shit. It was amazing. It was fantastic.
All right. Well, I'm going to kind of cut it there. I was happy to listen a little more this time and not speak quite as much, but that's all relative. So thank you all very much for joining me. We'll try to get back to this again another day. I love the interview so far. Like I said, Dr. Gears is just quite a pleasure to listen to. And he's just a cup that overfloweth, in so many ways. And I really appreciate his thoughts. And I do wish the SCP Wiki appreciated his thoughts a little more. So they like to kind of keep them at arm's length as sort of a bygone in so many ways, philosophically at least. But hey, this is motivation. I love what he says. I may borrow some of his lines, repurpose those. Not really. We'll see. Maybe I will. All right. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.